evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Eye on Cricket. And I'm pleased to say, as we've reached the brink of having our 2,000th subscriber on YouTube, that I have none other than Haritha Perera, a mentor, someone who guided me through as I started off with my commentary stage towards the beginning of this year. One of the most coveted names in the commentary space, not only in Sri Lanka, but in the region as well. And I'm honored to have you on the show. Thank you, Haritha, for joining us.
Thank you, Vivek.
But here, we wish we were doing this episode on a more optimistic note. But we've started off our World Cup campaign in disastrous fashion, off the back of 2 consecutive losses, on the eve of potentially facing Nepal, weather permitting. But I think the first question that we need to pose is, let's look at things slightly on the brighter side. We went into this World Cup with a very strong bowling attack. And if we have to give them some respite, those were 2 decent bowling performances. So is it a case of what tips again into Sri Lankan cricket? If our bowlers had an opportunity to defend slightly higher totals, do you think we'd be having a completely different discussion today?
Yeah, having agreed with your initial observation of Sri Lanka being strongly bowling rather than batting, T20 cricket is all about huge scores to be defended. That is the norm. But unfortunately, ICC is facing the wrath of the cricketing public and the cricketing fraternity for not having quality pitchers in United States of America. That is not the story with West Indies. So having said that, I think in trying to put the batters of all teams under the microscopic eye is probably not fair. But that doesn't mean Sri Lanka's 2 batting performances were entirely due to the pitch condition.
And we had this discussion about the novelty of these US pitchers. Let's go back to that first game against South Africa. It was alien conditions for both teams. When you win the toss, you haven't seen much of the New York strip. Wasn't it an obvious call to bowl first, see what the pitch had in offer, and then chase them down? Because seeing how we went about things, I wonder who in our think tank thought that was a match first kind of script.
Yeah, I know, but we are so far away from the venue. But having said that, when you analyze the situation now, let's face it, South Africa's bowling attack was far superior to what we would have faced in our group. That's the best bowling attack. We were restricted to that total, is what we are debating. That Sri Lanka should have had the opportunity to get to 130 on that wicket. You see, if you are not good enough to get to 130 against the best bowling side, you won't make it to the top 8. Even if you make it to the Super 8, you won't be much of a story there. So that is what the general feeling that I have after the match and after all this. See, the last game against India, they made only something like 109, but they restricted the opposition to 105 or something like that. So that is what same story with South Africa, winning by just 5 runs, making just above 100 runs. Also on the same wicket, New York. With all the good things about New York, that cricket pitch is far from what it should be for a World Cup, surely.
Exactly, we've seen a tale of 2 scripts during the course of the IPL. We've seen some high-scoring affairs, and in New York, particularly in and around the US, we've seen some low-scoring affairs. Quickly moving on to that second game against Bangladesh. Being in a position of strength, 100 for 3 after 14 overs. We've had these mid-order collapses. It's been a systemic issue in Sri Lankan cricket post-2015. But can we pinpoint it down to anything? Is it poor shot selection? Is it the lack of role clarity in terms of what each batter has to do in those situations? Or do you think it's a mix of everything, with us also not knowing what a good total was to set in Dallas?
So I think what a good total was, a lot of people had the option of making a 150 plus score there. That wicket was not too bad for that Going at almost 6 runs and over, into the 12th over, Sri Lanka were looking very good at 91 for 3. That's when that wicket fell too, after a 40 plus partnership. Having scored a boundary, Asalanka tried to go the big distance and never made it. Okay, Asalanka is a free scoring bat. He is one of those players who could clear the venue. But you must understand, Bangladesh was also a good bowling attack. Good all-rounders like Sri Lanka. And if you're not playing the psychological game against a good side, Sri Lanka on history, former champions in this format. They have beaten those teams from the Asian continent at a decent tick, even India and Pakistan. But when you come with that sort of attitude and try to get yourself dismissed, we can always argue this. It may be unfair, but you must put the fact in its perspective. If Wanindu Hasaranga is going to come on top of Angelo Matthews and Dasun Shanaka, you better score as a batter. Not 2 dismissals without scoring. That won't help you anyway.
And that brings me on quite nicely to my next question in terms of role clarity and role fulfillment. In the first game against South Africa, we were well poised at 32 for 2 in tough conditions. And you have Sadina Samaravickrama who's meant to be the anchor in your side, but you send one into the pinch hitter above him. He gets off for a duck off his second delivery, and then Sadina comes in under pressure and loses his wicket off his first delivery.
Yeah, 3 or 4 of Sri Lanka batters went without scoring. Now that is what I'm trying to tell. Kusal Mendis, I think, needs to understand his role. You can be the best stroke player or get it even closer. You can be Sri Lanka's best striker of the ball at the top of the order. But your task in the team requirement is to probably bat 10 overs. And that is where I think we are missing out. Okay, Pathum Nissanka his merry way and delivered the 40 plus in the Bangladesh game. But basically you are looking for continuity and consistency. That is what is not there. And I don't know whether it was the team plan or whether it was the captain's authority that got him into that batting position. I'm not too sure.
Exactly, that's what's concerning. When you have a player, and I'm not going to pinpoint it down to certain characteristics of the player, but there has been talk of certain players playing a bigger role than they're supposed to have in terms of having positions of leadership in the side. And this is where I question the think tank as well. Let's look at how we approached our batting. In that episode we had with Nicholas Brooks and Kit Miner, I did say Rishad Hussain was going to be Bangladesh's trump card. He has the confidence factor against Sri Lanka and brilliant series at home, took one in Hasaranga to the cleaners in Bangladesh, came into this game, and it was quite questionable when you tried to attack 2 of Bangladesh's most lethal weapons, Mustafizur Rahman and Rishad Hussain. And at that point, that's where I question our strategy and approach. Yes, Pathum was successful in taking Shakib out of the attack. But when you look at Kamindu's shot selection, Pathum's shot selection, Charan's shot selection as we were speaking of does that come with strategy and planning, or is that the players' autonomy to do as they think?
I think I will excuse Pathum Nissanka because the way he went, he contributed towards the Sri Lanka cause. So, okay, you will say that the shot selection is not there, but this is not a longer version game. The player who is good enough to get into the national side and play in that World Cup, he will decide, okay, I will play this shot. Sometimes it may not work, but probably up to 40, it had worked. But the problem there that I saw was the dismissal of Kusal Mendis and the dismissal of Wanindu Hasaranga. I never expected him to be there. So you have Angelo Matthews and Dasun Shanaka and Dhananjay De Silva, and why should you come on top of that?
And that was very, very questionable indeed. And I think you take it to the other side. You look at Bangladesh and their approach in that run chase. They were very tactical in terms of how they masterminded that run chase. They were very patient. But when they knew that Wanindu Hasaranga was under the park, Townsend had already decided, look, this was the over I was going to target. And that basically put the chase to bed. Yes, Nuwan Tushara's brilliance towards the end brought us back into the game. But that was a masterclass by everyone.
This is the psychology part of cricket. They say you must have skill. you must have luck, but you must also have the right attitude. If you don't have the right attitude, then the mental game is lost in the middle, and that's what happened to Anandu Hasananda. There is no question about his ability. He is one of cricket's most achieved all-rounders.
Yeah.
They say next to Shakib Al Hasan. That's fine. But Tawhid Ridoi had 4 sixes against Sri Lanka's captain and champion bowler. And it's the game that Sri Lanka lost on the psychology of the captain losing his battle.
Exactly.
So there are all kinds of analyzers and all kinds of people who are assisting the team, the players. If you are not listening to them, or if the right advice is not being furnished to the players, then you need to think, the cricketing authorities need to think very seriously. Because you can't be continuing doing these sort of things. Champions Trophy Sri Lanka is not involved.
Courtesy of that loss to Bangladesh in the 2023 World Cup, when we obviously spoke about player psychology. Our psychology was off in that game as well after the timed out incident. Everyone took it to the ultimate level, took it to unprecedented levels. Our focus in terms of defending that total went off the cards completely.
See, I was in Bangladesh for the Free Nation tour when this Nagina story started. We ended that tour after a disaster start, won it as champions.
Yeah.
I saw what went on before and after the game in the final. We were the part of the community team from Sri Lanka, really. That is going too far now. Yeah, you get battles. You get the India-Pakistan battle, but see how they played that game. You get the England-Australia match, 200, 160. See how that match went? But where did the Sri Lanka-Bangladesh match go?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And on the eye of cricket, we ask some hard-hitting questions. Both Ty and I have no agendas here, we have no links, no direct links to anyone else on this channel, which gives us an opportunity to pose this question. I'll tell you, you follow Sri Lankan cricket more closely than anyone else. I'll give you that accolade.
No. See, I've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Yes.
Right?
Fair enough. I want to pose this question. When you look at World Cup cycles, I want to take us back to 2015 when England had hit rock bottom, as I said, on shows prior in Adelaide, losing to Bangladesh in 2015. When Morgan, Trevor Bayliss and co decided, look, it was time to take cricket a certain way, pulled together a plan, and 4 years later they were champions. They used the entire duration of that cycle to get a group together, trusted the group, and gave the full license to players like Jason Roy, Bairstow, to play the brand of cricket they want to see. But with this Sri Lankan outfit, and this is the stat that I pulled up the other day, that game against South Africa was only the second instance, and that's including the warm-up game we played against Netherlands, where we played this exact same combination in a T20 game. Is that concerning factor, that our planning and preparation for a World Cup is so short-sighted?
I wouldn't say it's short-sighted. Yeah, people can argue on that and express yourself. I think Sri Lanka's setup is experienced enough to realize what you said, long-term, short-term strategizing. But the actual fact is that the performers are the achievers or the non-achievers. What is happening here, as far as I see, is with all the high-performance analysis from Sri Lanka cricket, with all the expertise available to them with a 15-strong backup staff, if the cricketers are not prepared to perform to their expected skill level, because their attitude is not proper for the occasion. Yeah, 2020 cricket, the match changes in 1 or 2 balls, fine. But there has to be a consistency with what we have planned and what we have practiced in the actual performance on the middle during match day. Match day is for the players only. All others stay behind. That's a concern. Because, see, these are supposed to be professionals. If a professional lawyer is not up to mark, he'll lose the case in the court of law. Somebody will be sentenced to death. If a surgeon is not performing to expectation, you could kill your patient on the operating table. I can give you so many other things. It's the same thing that is happening. If the cricketers are not performing, okay, you have certain other aspects coming in. But that is why you are supposed to be a professional cricketer. If you are not acting as a professional cricketer and an amateur, you can't expect anything more.
I don't think anyone will put that any better. That was the most apt example. And I want to echo what you said, consistency and continuity. And that applies to players' accountability as well for their on-field actions in terms of fulfilling their roles. I think it's an apt time to pose this final question as we try to review Sri Lanka's performances over the last 2 games. And I think it's a question I've been asked to ask you by many of our viewers. Is it time for Sri Lanka to hit the factory reset button, especially when it comes to limited overs cricket? Our test cricket is on a stable footing, perhaps potentially thanks largely to an experienced cohort of players that have played in the side. We have a fairly stable and set playing 11. But when it comes to limited overs cricket, T20 cricket and ODI cricket, is it time for us to revamp things completely? We've not made it to the Champions Trophy. We've now also reached a certain juncture in T20 cricket where we're not going to be amongst the Super 8s in the World Cup. Is it time for us to get that reset button?
Yeah, see, you take Dushman the Chamir, he has not played a match. That explains a little bit of the story. I think it's the last Cricket World Cup for Angelo Matthews. Maybe 1 or 2 others also. Yeah, it's a panic-stricken situation now, but all is not lost. I remember I was on commentary 1996 World Cup, 1999 World Cup. You know what it was, how different Sri Lanka's experiences were. You can rise, you have to rise, because this is cricket is now a sports business. It's not only a sport. It earns money for the player, for the cricket board, and for the country.
Yeah.
It earns money for people like us doing what we are doing now. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe just a little, but those little things only matter to the big picture and the big earner. So Sri Lanka needs to look at the system is there. Let me tell you, the systems are there. I think you've got to get the right individuals handling the right backup services. If some people are not up to the mark, get rid of it. This is not a place where you can do the welfare.
Yeah.
You're tasked with the job, deliver or get lost.
Very well said. And I think my penultimate question, just looking at Sri Lanka, is linked to what happens from here on in. Obviously, we still have 2 games weather permitting. It'll be nice to see us play for pride, even if the other results don't go our way, even if we don't qualify for the Super 8s. I think all Sri Lankan fans are due 2 good performances.
See, the game against Netherlands, they have been very competitive. Sri Lanka can't afford to lose to them.
Yes.
Right? It's not about the game of cricket. It's about the culture of cricket in Sri Lanka. So you need to be very focused. After all, it's a World Cup game. Performances go into their career statistics for both teams. So it's important. You don't come out of a World Cup without any win for the fact. So I think it's very important.
It's important we don't repeat a 99 with our last 2 games. And my final question on Sri Lanka before we pose a few wrap-up questions linked to the World Cup as a whole. I hope, and this is my sincere hope, in the aftermath of this World Cup, that we don't have a few scapegoats. I'm going to put my head out here and say Chris Silverwood has been a decent coach for Sri Lanka. He came in on the back of an Ashes drubbing. There were question marks over his selection as a coach at the time, but he took us to 2 consecutive Asia Cup finals. We won one, and we'll not talk about the other. Had some impressive Test series displays and nearly got us to an ICC World Test Championship final. It had that New Zealand series gone our way. But I hope it's not just individuals who are scapegoated here, but that there is an honest review and an honest assessment of what happened.
See, what I see is that a few individuals will have to bear the brunt of this cricketing misadventure, this Cricket World Cup for Sri Lanka. But it should be a collective, cohesive, honest analysis of what exactly happened and why it happened. Maybe 1 or 2 people will have to understand that it was not fair on them.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
everybody is a professional. So everybody expects you to deliver to your best ability, to the highest level of skills. See that it happens everywhere. Rugby World Cups, football cups, Champions Trophy, European sport, you take it. South American sport, what sport, whichever way, any sport. So for cricket, for a country like ours, Sri Lanka, if you take the geographical aspect of countries participating, we are probably the smallest.
Yeah.
We are probably not the richest either, but we have performances to show that we can be proud of. We have a culture, we have a setup. I think we need to safeguard all that and think about the future. We'll have to play World Cups. Sri Lanka will host World Cups within the next 5 years, 6 years.
They're hosting the next T20 World Cup in 2026. Very well put, Haritha. And just before we close the show, how have you enjoyed the World Cup thus far? What are you looking forward to seeing going into the latter stages of the World Cup? Personally, for me, yes, we spoke about the dubious pitches in the US. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise now that we're all moving across to the West Indies for the Super 8s and the finals. But for me, I think this has become a level playing field now. In my Super 8s, in my predictions now, I see as many as 2 associate nations in the same group in the Super 8s, USA and Scotland. Born in Scotland, to all our fans tuning in, all my friends from Scotland tuning in. Yes, we're definitely trying to make it out of that group with England, and the results thus far have been quite favourable. But for me, seeing that level playing field being presented to these associates to stamp their mark on international cricket, and to also take a jump at the ICC for now finally expanding the World Cup to having 20 teams and not having 8 or 10 teams featuring it is something I'm looking forward to seeing. And the second thing, and this might seem strange to say, but it's always nice seeing the West Indies doing well, especially in this format. This is a format that they are best at in terms of technical ability and prowess. So those are the 2 things I'm looking forward to seeing. What about you?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, for the spread of the game and for finances, USA's performances are noteworthy. We congratulate them. They are the big world power in the world sport in so many different aspects that they get involved there. The whole of Asia gets involved as far as USA cricket is concerned. But take a look at the North American continent, what Canada has done for the tournament World Cup. They put 190 plus. Of course, they lost that game, but still they are good. They are big. I remember when we played the 1975 Prudential World Cup, Canada were bigger than Sri Lanka, right? So it's just that's why that we are such a small country with a big reputation. All countries envy Sri Lanka. This little Sri Lanka for what we have achieved at the world stage. So to get there, Australia, they made the only 200 plus score at peak, right? So there is a lot at stake there itself. Yes, the associate nations coming in. Don't forget, Scotland has a very good sporting culture. They have their rugby, they have their boxing, they have their athletics, they have their billiards and snooker.
Yeah.
This is at the world level, mind you, right?
Yeah.
Just to name a few. Their boxing.
Football as well.
Yeah, that we've gone through that all that sport. Okay, you're looking at. So don't be surprised. The expansion of cricket over the next 20 years. Don't be surprised if maybe Japan, maybe Malaysia come out on top. There's a huge following here. You never know. Qatar, what they will do, import 10 teams, 10 players, like what they do with the athletics and so many other sports. For that matter, Saudi Arabia is expanding with their golf, with their football. Volleyball is so good. So basically, you are looking at ICC getting into areas where the basket is good, right? And in trying to do so, I would be surprised that one fine day we will play a 32-team tournament. I'm looking forward to how many teams are going to play in the next Olympics after Paris.
And that 32-team World Cup would be the template for a World Cup. Football has FIFA World Cups cover 32 teams, and that would be the ideal World Cup, and perhaps the most ideal format as well. We're not even talking about T10 cricket. because then you start that as
No,
a
no,
format.
you can't play one day cricket. It must come with standardized playing fields, not the New York City pitch. Under any circumstances. It's not fair. It was not fair on Sri Lanka, it was not fair on anybody else who played there.
Exactly. And I think it was a test that was a bridge too far for most teams, and a test that was uncalled for on the part of the ICC. So we've spoken about different formats, and we're going to wrap up this show talking about an entirely different format. A format quite close to both the Haritha in terms of indoor cricket. Sri Lanka had a brilliant run at the England Asia Cup, which we were both honoured to be the commentary box for. And it's an avenue of the sport that is growing in Sri Lanka. And there's no one willing to talk about this than Mr. Hirandimel and Haritha. Yes, Haritha, I leave this to you to enlighten our fans on what we as Sri Lanka have achieved in that avenue of the game.
When the game was introduced at the beginning of this millennium, long time ago, Sri Lanka played their first test against Australia. Won it off the last ball, Sanjay Jayaratne hitting a 6. And Australia was stunned. They had not lost a test match before that. And the Indo Cricket World Cup was hosted by Sri Lanka in 2004. Sri Lanka played Australia in the final. They controlled the game for 75% of the match, lost it off the last game. Ever since that, I've gone to 2 Masters World Cups. No, 1 Masters World Cup, 1 Open World Cup, one in Johannesburg, one in Brisbane. I've been involved with a lot of the 3-nation, 4-nation tournaments that have been played here. Right now, UPro is getting the World Series was the Club World Series was played, and come September, the Masters World Cup will be held in Sri Lanka, hosted by Sri Lanka, and they expect 14 teams and something like 700 people to be in Sri Lanka. So that's sport tourism for you. Right now, at the moment, the semi-finals and the final of the inaugural Indo Cricket League in Sri Lanka is coming up. You and I will be involved. They'll be streaming. And the Ceylon Indo Cricket Association is looking forward to an expansion. I have been covering the preliminary 7 days and I've been impressed with what I've seen. I look forward to the live streaming tomorrow and 2 days time in the final. I think, see, in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa and England, their respective cricketing authorities, ACB, South Africa Cricket, New Zealand Cricket, and it's huge, right? You name international players have played the Indo cricket and played the outdoor cricket at World Cup level. So I look forward to that. I hope Sri Lanka cricket get involved in that. See what it can offer them as far as the plus points are concerned. And I hope that Hirandimel is very well respected by the World Indo Cricket Federation. He is an absolutely marvelous ambassador for the sport worldwide. I hope the Indo cricketers will one day, before it's too long, reap the benefits with something substantial.
We spoke about continuity and consistency and playing for passion. If you want to see that, swing by to UPro, Colombo, echoing what Hirandimel would say on his FB post. If you want to see proper cricket nowadays, there's no better place than UPro, Colombo. But Haritha, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure having you with us, and we look forward to having you on many more episodes going forward.
Thank you, Viren, and all the best with your new venture.